Welcome to the Driving Forward podcast. It's Wednesday, February 24th. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. February 6th, we have Lindsay Trent on from Next Gen Trucking. Lindsay is doing amazing things assisting fleet owners in better managing their fleets, mitigating risks, and reducing their costs while increasing profits. If you're at Manifest, we're kicking off the Freight Movement and BCS Big Road Tour. Come join us and our partners at Black Tap on the Venetian casino floor from 7 to 10 p.m. There's limited space, so sign up now. We'll post the Eventbrite link in the comments. This following week, Tuesday, February 11th, we're live at Manifest. I'm excited about this one. We'll have a great discussion about leadership, sales, and security with Nick Darman, the CEO from Elvis. We'll also be talking about Elvis's unique approach and story. If you're not familiar with it, you'll want to listen in. Also, I don't have a banner for this one. We were just talking about it. Truckload, TCA Truckload 2025, March 15th through 18th. GLCS will be there. We'll have a great crew of people. We'll be live. So Driving Forward podcast will be live there. Robert Bain's going to be hosting that podcast. I'm going to be on vacation in Mexico, unfortunately, which I'm kind of disappointed about. Truckload 2025 or Truckload every year is one of my favorite conferences to go to. It's very engaging. Lots of different companies throughout throughout the industry, and the driver engagement, the driver stories that we're able to meet or sit down and meet with. It's always an exciting and great event to attend. So this episode is a special episode that we were able to put together, and I put some thought into how we wanted to open this. And the trucking industry is the backbone of our economy, and we hear that all the time, but it's absolutely the truth. Moving goods across the country and keeping businesses running. But let's be honest, this industry faces some serious challenges: rising costs, evolving regulations, workforce shortages, and increasing pressure to operate more efficiently. It can feel like an uphill battle for truckload carriers to stay ahead. That's where the Truckload Carriers Association comes in. For decades, TCA has been the voice of truckload carriers, fighting for their interests in Washington, providing resources to help companies thrive, and building a strong community of industry professionals. But how exactly does TCA help carriers navigate these challenges? What real benefit does it bring to its members? And what's on the horizon for trucking in 2025 and beyond? Today, we're diving into all of that and more. Plus, we'll be talking about Truckload 2025. Once again, one of my favorite conferences, and I went to 21 last year. TCA's highly anticipated and annual conference this month, Truckload 2025, where industry leaders come together to tackle the future of trucking head on. To help us break it all down, I'm extremely excited to welcome two guests from the TCA. Zander Gambill, the Vice President of Membership, and David Heller, the Senior Vice President of Safety and Government Affairs. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us, Nate. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Why don't we start off with a little bit of background from you both on we got the titles, but let's start off with kind of what you guys do and where you come from. So
sure, I'll start. Yeah.
Okay, David, go for it. You got the volunteer. So
sure. I raised my hand. So
yeah,
let's say this. I've been with TCA for almost 20 years. So it's getting close to 20 years. So to say I'm part of an organization that really means something and does something and kind of summarizes what you said earlier, certainly is a great thing. It's a great organization. I've always loved being part of it, and I've always loved interacting with the membership at TCA. Prior to being a TCA, I did 7 years at ATA, and I don't make that to sound like a criminal penalty or anything, but it certainly started my career in the trucking industry, and did 7 years working on programs like the National Truck Driving Championship and safety management programs with ATA. And then I started my career off at TCA. So it's been an illustrious career. I do a lot of things on Capitol Hill. I get to understand all the issues that our members are going through and have to communicate and interpret some of those things. I get to visit with all our friends in the Senate and the House and talk about the issues that our members direct me to talk about. So it's a great industry. It's a great membership. It truly is. And I can never complain about anything I ever done. I've got the best day of work ever.
Well, you are a lucky man, sir. So
one of the few.
Yeah, fair enough. Zander, a quick introduction there.
Yeah. I've not been here as long as Dave, 20 plus years. I've been here just 6 years, and Dave kind of alluded to a little bit. We wear a lot of hats here at TCA. I think we've got 10 or 11 full-time staffers. I work in membership, booth sales, sponsorship sales, marketing, PR, tightly closed in with Dave on events and Diane with the events team, and wear a lot of many hats here. And as we said, we're lean and mean and very accessible. And before I started here at TCA, I kind of had a media background in audience development and publishing. So that kind of translated well into the association world of, driving engagement, driving membership, driving sponsorship sales, and making sure our memberships are happy. So that's what I do here. And Dave talks highly of TCA, and I guess I do too. But it's a good group, and I've enjoyed my 6 years here, and especially under the leadership of Jim Ward, our president.
Great. Excellent. So, well, once again, welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys on. Glad to promote TCA, especially at this time. We're right before Truckload 2025. And a lot of the questions that I think we're going to go over and the discussion we're going to have, I want to kind of tie back to the conference, because that's kind of the premier. Obviously, TCA has an overall mission throughout the year, but it sort of culminates into the annual conference where everybody kind of gets together and talks about the industry issues, talks about, where the industry is going and what we're doing. So, I think as we go through this, we're going to come back and say, how does this impact or how is this represented in the conference in Truckload 2025? So, I think that's how we're going to kind of proceed with this. But so, trucking isn't just about moving freight. It's a lot about livelihoods. It's a lot about families and about keeping America running. So can you guys share, both of you have been with TCA quite a while. So David, 20 years, Zander, you said 6, correct? So,
yep.
So can you share a moment, and whether it's one or both of you share that moment when TCA's advocacy and support made a real difference in the life of a trucker or a carrier, or even the industry as a whole during your tenure with TCA? A moment that reminded you why the work that you do or the organization that you work for matters.
And I'm going to have to bring up our Call on Washington program, Nate. And this is that opportunity once a year that our members come into town and do my job for me, if that makes sense. And nothing makes me more proud of our membership when they can adequately and properly speak on issues that are affecting them with their elected officials. So think senators, think representatives, anybody that's in Congress. And I mean, that's one of those turn the dial moments, if you will, when a person, a government affairs wonk or policy wonk like myself, that's involved in the day-to-day, the rules and regulations that are coming out through Congress or FMCSA, and you have members of this industry come and walk the halls of Congress with me and walk with Zander and visit their elected officials and talk about the issues that really matter. What happens even more so, or what makes it even more prouder, is when those representatives take action after the fact. So it's not just FaceTime we're getting. There's legitimate actions involved when it comes to doing things after the fact and talking about the issues that really matter. So moving the needle, if you will, and getting involved from the ground up, or having a member that may be in Call Washington, and then we'll do a congressional visit back at their home terminal to talk about the issues that matter to them, the issues that are affecting their business. And you're talking family-run businesses. These TCA, I've been here 20 years. I've been involved with people whose children are now running the businesses from the member I first met 20 years ago. So they're starting to take over those businesses and keep those businesses running in an industry that wants them, needs them, and loves to have them. And I think it's that career defining moment when you see them on Capitol Hill, you see them talking about the issues, whether it's parking, whether it's driver satisfaction, independent contractor, size and weight, drug and alcohol testing, environmental issues, all of these things. They're coming in and talking about it in such passion and glory because this is what really matters to their business. And it's a fantastic thing to see.
That's a perfect answer. Absolutely perfect answer. Zander, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. I mean, Colin Washington is pretty impactful, and I kind of agree with all he said there. And I think there's a lot of other things that I can talk to where I think we've made a big difference. And I think we have with a lot of our image and kind of award campaigns. I mean, we want to shed good light on the safe drivers that are out there, the safe fleets. And for example, we've got our Fleet Safety Awards program that Dave runs that recognizes and highlights those fleets with great safety records. And not all truck drivers are bad drivers, and safety is our priority. And this is a showcase for these fleets, and that comes to mind. Also, our Professional Driver of the Year program, which is sponsored by Loves and Cummings. I mean, we launched that program to recognize 5 drivers and who have really made an impact in the industry, and who are ambassadors to the industry that have contributed to their communities and whatnot. And right now we recognize 5, as I said, and we'll be recognizing them at our annual convention, and each one gets $20,000. And I think that's really kind of raised the bar for Drivers of the Year programs and the type of drivers that we're recognizing. So I think those are 2 examples that I could cite.
Those are great examples. The Professional Driver of the Year program is one. If you do attend Truckload 2025, you absolutely have to go to that dinner with where they all are presented, and everybody's got tears in their eyes. I'm sure those that know what's coming don't, but year over year you go in and you're like, this isn't going to affect me, and then you hear the stories and you meet the people, and I go out of my way to go chat with those drivers and hear their stories and talk with them. And being a former driver myself, all their messages resonate with me. Last year we had a couple of them on the podcast, so
awesome.
we go out of our way to try to meet with as many of them as possible. So wonderful stories and great people. So those are great answers to that. Can you talk a little bit about what the overall mission of TCA is?
Yeah, no, I can say, overall, our mission is to represent the only national trade association whose sole focus is that truckload segment of the industry. So whether it's advocating, whether it's marketing, networking, educating those truckload carriers that are operating on our roadways today, is focusing on the issues that matter to them, that they're defining for us, and being able to educate them, whether it's finding solutions to the problem or giving them an audience with like-minded people that are experiencing the same problems, so that each and every one of them has that opportunity to learn and make their fleets better. The reality is going to be is this is a great industry, and these are the poster children for fantastic fleets when they are involved at TCA, and we continue to support that mantra and continue to support that our fleets certainly want to be involved. I think ATRI had done a study that says if your fleet is involved either at a state association or a national association, inherently you're going to operate safer than those that aren't. And it's one of those things that we certainly uphold to and strive for.
Absolutely. That's the second time in 3 weeks that's come up in the podcast. So the last time was with John Haslod. So
okay.
I would just add to that, Nate. Dave Williams with Knight Swifts was our chairman last year. Right. John Culp with Maverick is our current chairman, and one of Dave's initiatives, which John has carried forward to this year, is kind of setting the narrative with 5 different areas that TCA wants to set and provide membership benefit and just kind of overall themes for our mission. And the first one is, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, is improving the driver's job, improving the carrier's profitability, improving the industry image of drivers and the fleets that are out there, championing kind of reasonable and practical kind of environmental initiatives. And Dave, I'm probably missing the fifth one there.
You hit the nail on the head.
I think there's one more I'm missing, but there are five
Sure.
there. So Dave was a big champion of those kind of those narrative points that we're kind of driving home with all the things that we do here. Again, whether it's the Fleet Safety Awards, Driver of the Year, Government Affairs, Colin Washington, that kind of guides our kind of everyday operations here at TCA.
Well, if you really break down what it takes to be a successful carrier, those four things, I would throw my fifth one on, which is safe operating equipment. So
that was the one I was missing. Thank you.
Yeah, fair enough. And that was off the top of my head, man. That was off the top of my head. I've never heard the list before. So, but just looking at the fact that 20% of the equipment on the road shouldn't be on the road. So, if I ran a carrier again today, that would be my top five. My top five targets. So, if I create good jobs for drivers, I'm not going to have a recruiting issue. I'm going to be able to operate successfully. That's going to take a lot less effort to create a profitable organization. And then industry image, I think all of us are targeting that. And we've done a great job over the last 6-7 years of creating a much better image of trucking. So, a lot longer than that even, but really over the last 6 or 7 years. So let's go on to kind of the next topic a little bit. For carriers, especially smaller fleets, the challenges of staying compliant, and I think this kind of falls into the narrative we were talking about, the challenges of staying compliant and competitive, even financially stable, can feel absolutely overwhelming. And I'm going to ask for a lot of stories. I think that's where TCA or any
Dave has more than I do.
Fair enough. I've been in the industry 28 years. I've got a million.
I have more than Dave. Yeah.
So to kind of go through that, can you share a story of a TCA member, a company or an individual that who is struggling and through TCA advocacy found support, resources through the community, through TCA and the support that it provides?
Yeah, and I'll be honest here. It's hard to narrow it down to just one, because the second you ask me this question, 8 million things start popping into my head. And it's a ton of different things. And you said it yourself, the struggle to remain compliant is always a challenge. But as an industry and as leaders in our industry, we can never advocate for non-compliance. So it's one of those things we certainly have to always advocate to be in compliance with the existing rules and regulations. And those are the ones that we have to abide by every day. But the reality is going to be sometimes there are hiccups, right? And what do those hiccups look like? I'm reminded, let's put it in recent terms, freight fraud or cyber attacks, what have you. Well, there's been a lot of news about cyber threats to our industry through logging on and stealing MCS numbers or DOT numbers and acting as them. And I had a carrier that exactly happened to. And it was one of those situations where they reached out to me and asked me what they could do, because it revoked their operating authority that day. And how can they get this fixed? Because they had trucks literally on the highway at that very moment, driving and delivering freight and doing so in a safe manner. They just didn't have any operating authority because somebody hacked into their system. So the reality became here was a carrier that used their TCA membership to give us a call. We put them in touch with the proper people at FMCSA to make sure their operating authority got reinstated, so that they are compliant. And certainly there is a difference between safety and compliance. That holds no doubt. But at the same point, here's one of those situations where their systems had gotten hacked. the hacker that hacked their systems had revoked their operating authority, had gone into FMCSA system, acted as them, and revoked the authority. And then at the same point, we were able to get that authority implemented or reinstituted that day, so that there was only a small window of outage, if you will, for that matter. And there's stories like that that happen all the time here at TCA with members. And again, this hacking certainly wasn't something of their fault. It was one of the situations you start to hear more stories about cyber threats and hackers along the industry. And the more we start relying on computer systems and technology, things like that happen. So here's a case where belonging to TCA and surrounding yourself with information that can actually benefit the operation of your fleet is one that's continually goes down the road and highlights some of the important reasons and why you want to belong to an organization like TCA.
Right. Yeah, that's obviously a topic that centers around us. I've got dozens of that exact same story. So
yeah,
absolutely. Zander, you were going to say something?
Yeah, and I would add too, we do a lot of educational programs, certificates, things I could cite that probably help a small carrier and a large carrier. But specific examples, I think there's a lot of this stuff goes on is just members connecting with members. I'm thinking of an example, a smaller Canadian group was setting up some shop in America, and it had some HR kind of benefits kind of questions that obviously I couldn't answer them, or if we don't have the expertise, we put them in touch with another fellow TCA member, and they're more than happy to help out. And I think a lot of those conversations go on that we don't know of, but I've made many introductions just assisting there from member to member. And again, I think that happens more than we know, which is a great thing. And at convention, there's a lot of networking and best practices being discussed, but a lot of that happens, I believe.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Is certainly at the convention, it's one of the better organizations for that, because it is targeting the truckload sector. So most of the processes that you're looking at are similar, whether you're a dry bulk carrier, a dry van carrier, a refrigerated carrier. A lot of those core processes are the same. And so if you have questions around them, they're very similar. So yes, you're doing a different segment of work, but the processes are similar. And as you start passing through and meeting people, you're going to ask similar questions. You're going to have similar problems. And there's hundreds of people at Truckload 2025 that are going to probably have the answer to the questions or answer, because there's always more than one, to the problem that you have, or at least be able to point you in that direction. Whether it's another company or a technology provider or a service provider, there's all kinds of people there. So,
and Dave, didn't we have another Canadian member that helped someone find their lost trailer? Wasn't that kind of I think you were more involved with that story and that timeline, but that was kind of interesting and very impactful.
Oh, certainly. And again, these things like this happen all the time through the networking opportunities, but we had and again, we're an international association, so we have members in both Canada and Mexico, as well as the US. And we had a trailer theft that the trailer was up north in Canada, north of the border, and the carrier was able to locate it, but was unable to put eyes on it, and wanted to know if we knew anybody in the local township that was able to lay eyes on this trailer. And lo and behold, I knew the safety person that lived right there. And I called him and said, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" He said, "Happy to." And he went, and not only did he lay eyes on the trailer to make sure the trailer was still there, but he went and picked up the trailer and put it in his yard for the other carrier to eventually come pick it up. So it's that networking, it's that fraternity, if you will, of membership that certainly rings true and plays hold. And everybody's out to support each other in business and making sure that the industry is safer. There's no secrets in safety. So they're sharing best practices all the time, and what makes for a better carrier and what makes for better operation. And this happens all the time on a daily basis at TCA.
We have a comment here from Jeff McKinney, and he says, TCA has been a great resource for our company and takes the time to listen. We all share our stories and issues to help each other out. He says, where else can you go where the organization listens rather than has a standard answer to all of your questions? And I agree, Jeff. It's been
well said, Jeff.
Good organization. So appreciate that statement, Jeff. How does TCA engage? Oh, sorry. I guess how does TCA support its members in areas like? So we've talked about that it can happen, but so typically, how does it support its members in the areas like networking and education and safety programs. So we talked about that it does happen. And to Jeff's point, he says that, that all flows, but can you talk about the programs and how that sort of support happens?
Well, and this is going to sound like Jeff was planted on this program, but Jeff is a great friend of mine, and Jeff also sits on our safety and security division planning committee. So when we do a meeting like annual convention or our safety meeting or our refrigerated meeting or our Bridging Border Barriers event in Canada, it's not just Dave and Zander sitting in a room coming up with ideas and topics that we think people want to hear. No, that's not the case. I rely on people like Jeff, who flies into town here at TCA World Headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia. And I basically lock Jeff in a room with about a dozen of his other safety patriots there, safety compatriots, and say, hey, let's get a meeting that would be beneficial for people to attend. So Jeff is always happy to get involved and is always instrumental in planning and coming up with ideas about sessions that he wants to hear. Because lo and behold, it's not just Jeff that is dealing with these issues, whether it's safety, compliance, or business operations related. But lo and behold, other people in the room are dealing with it too. So Jeff's not a shy guy. He's certainly always willing to talk and always willing and able to step up to the plate. But this is how TCA programs are formed. It's because a member's willingness to step forward and talk about the issues that they're dealing with and then ways in which they can be fixed. So it's not one of those situations that it's a top down. We're taking the ideas from our membership and bringing bottom up, so to speak.
Right. Perfect.
And we do that with all our events, Nate. That's safety meeting, Bridging Border Barriers, as Dave said, the safety meeting, convention, refrigerated meeting as well, that Elizabeth Nicholson runs, our education director. So we're looking for their feedback and input. They spend their time, effort, and money to come to TCA World Headquarters, as Dave said, and sit down for 2 days and hash out the content, the agenda flow, the speakers, panelists, and whatnot. And we are truly membership led.
Great, excellent answer. So trucking is and always has been a tough job. Today's drivers are, in my opinion, facing more pressure than ever. The hours, the tighter regulations, time away from families, that's always been a thing, but I don't think it's necessarily changed, other than, maybe we're seeing a shift in the way we operate a little bit, where drivers are home more often. What's a story that truly highlights the sacrifices made in this industry and why fixing these challenges in the industry matters to you?
Well, and I can bring this up. I've been with TCA a long time, so I know a lot of the stories. Well, years ago, a carrier member, Pottles Transportation out of Maine, came to TCA. And Barry Pottle, what a great ambassador to the industry Barry was. And his trucking company came, and Barry came to TCA and said, hey, look, I've come across this company, this organization whose purpose has been to lay wreaths on the tombstones of every fallen soldier that has died in American history or American battles, if you will. And we want to grow this program. We certainly want to get more wreaths on every tombstone in Arlington National Cemetery. And so Barry had brought this to TCA, and he delivered it with such passion and such involvement that he sold it to other members. So Wreaths Across America has grown to the event it has been because TCA members are stepped up and willing to deliver wreaths across this entire country to military cemeteries across this entire country to remember, honor, and teach about those fallen veterans so that they are honored at the holiday time with a wreath on their tombstone. And it has really grown into this massive national event all across the country because the industry stepped up to deliver those wreaths. And it's one of those situations that without that passion, without that belief that Barry Pottle had in that program and in that organization, we probably wouldn't see what it is today with all the delivery and the logistics that go behind delivering these wreaths.
This industry, you always hear 7 degrees of separation, but this industry has about 2 degrees of separation.
Oh, yeah.
You've been in it for a while. And you think about wreaths across America, and I did not know that Barry had anything to do with connecting wreaths with TCA or anything like that. So that's very interesting. So there's some stories there on how I'm connected to that. But with our involvement with wreaths over the last year or so, and previous involvement as well, but on a different level, that's interesting. So thanks for letting me know that. So of course he's got to hang up his hat now, and through a series of acquisitions. Actually, there's a long story on that one. There's several companies that have all succeeded through that, and now it's all Bison. So, but yeah, that's a long story. So, but that's a great story. I really do appreciate that. So, so how do you feel that fleet owners, carriers, how do you feel like they can better support drivers in terms of benefits and quality of life? I'm kind of taking a different path away from our core discussion here and just get some driver talk for a little bit.
Yeah, I would say we're addressing that. As you know, we've launched what we call our Elite Fleet TCA Elite Fleet program that's going to recognize those fleets that provide a great kind of working place and working environment for drivers. So we've gone through the application enrollment process where we're scoring the companies now, and just to see the numbers, whether it's turnover, amenities, equipment, safety records, compensation, pay, benefits. We're getting all those numbers together to kind of see, and as well as the driver survey results as well, but trying to see who are the elite fleets that are out there, and be able to provide kind of benchmarking data back to the other fleets, the TCA member fleets, to kind of give them a sense of, here are some of the top performing fleets. And that's one way we do that, through kind of data benchmarking and providing that feedback to our members.
Perfect. You couldn't have answered that. I was hoping you would go that route. Okay, so on the elite fleet,
words out of Dave's mouth.
So I was actually hoping we would. The next bullet point on my list was elite fleet. So
there you go.
You jumped right into that, Zander. Thank you.
Yeah.
So on the elite fleet side, so when drivers are shopping for a place to work, do they have access to that type of information so they can go out and find the elite fleets? Or how can they use TCA? Because the driver isn't maybe as knowledgeable to go as your average driver in the world today. They don't think about going and looking at TCA when they're looking for a job, or maybe they do, maybe they don't. They'd have to be pretty educated today to think about looking at TCA and looking at an elite fleet. Now, as a company owner, maybe I'm going to think about looking at TCA when I want to look at a trucking company. But how is there a plan to push that information out to the driving population so that they know these are the companies to drive for today?
Yeah, and I think that plan is contingent on those elite fleets broadcasting their message that they indeed are elite fleet. So, there'll be decals and press releases and celebrations and awards for these fleets, and we hope that they use that status of being elite fleet to pass that along to the public and advertise that and let it be known that they are elite fleet. So, we focus a lot on carrier profitability and operations. So we're dealing a lot with C-level executives and those managers and operators of fleets. And we do have some driver programs, so we don't have, access to all these drivers per se, like maybe some other associations might, but just, through the word of mouth and through the companies, elite fleets, again, broadcasting that message, that's the value for them to say, hey, we're an elite fleet and you need to come work for us. So I think it's just a matter of time before that message gets out by the carriers and through us.
Yeah. I look at it, some of the smaller carriers struggle with their broadcast capability. So that's where I look at it. And the larger carriers have a very good dominant marketing group, but the smaller carriers are still figuring that out. So,
yeah.
So let's take a little bit of a break here, and we have about a minute of a commercial. So if you guys need to grab a drink or something like that real quick, And why we're taking this break, if you guys, if anyone watching wants to queue up a couple comments, we can come back, answer them. Otherwise, we'll continue our conversation around TCA and the upcoming conference Truckload 2025.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
All right, we are back. Next question. Got some background noise from somebody. But next question. So there's a lot of excitement in the industry around the future of trucking, autonomous vehicles, AI-driven everything. Sustainability initiatives, driver for many drivers and company owners. These changes don't necessarily feel like progress, but some people probably are worried about losing their jobs. Others are worried about the cost of compliance, the cost of acquisition. Safety obviously remains at the core of everyone's concern. In your experience, is the industry truly moving forward? Is it moving forward in a way that is benefiting the people on the front lines, or are we risking leaving some of these folks behind?
Well, if we look at history with our industry, right, there is always going to be a moving forward capability that goes along with that. History will tell you that we've come a long way from a horse and buggy that delivers freight, right? We now have a diesel-powered engine, a 53-foot trailer in the truckload segment of the industry that delivers freight all across the globe. So our history will tell you we will always be moving forward. The reality is going to be is when you look at whether it's environmental, safety regulations, autonomous vehicles, AI, all of these things that have come at the industry seemingly at a breakneck pace, is we have to move forward at a strategic pace in which the industry defines it, not at a pace in which others tell us what to do. If you look at the recent environmental regulations that President Biden was putting forward, or those that were coming from California, certainly were problematic in its nature because they attributed timelines to it, not necessarily answering all the questions that were involved in incorporating some of these things, whether it's charging stations, power grid, power generation, even whether or not these vehicles could perform to the diesel-powered engine standards. These things just didn't happen, but yet there was a date attributed to it, and we weren't going to comply with those dates. So the reality is going to be is certainly we have an administration change, and those dates and those rules are being looked at as we speak because they're unachievable. So as an industry, we must always want to move forward. We must always ask that question, what's next? What can we do next? How can we do this better? The professional truck driver is always going to be a professional truck driver. There's no doubt in my mind, for as long as I am in this profession, there's going to be a seat at the table for a professional truck driver. And the reason we know that is because when we see all these autonomous vehicles there's always a windshield on them. And if there's a windshield on them, there's going to need to be somebody to look out at. So in saying that, the reality is going to be is we have to define what that future looks like. And we have to be more involved in defining that. Whether you're a small trucking company or a large trucking company, they all will have roles in what the future looks like. We just have to define it and make sure that these rules make sense for us, whether it is technologically advanced pieces of equipment, environmentally friendly pieces of equipment. We support the environment. There is no doubt in my mind, and our history shows we definitely do that. The reality is going to be we have to do so in a way that the industry is involved in with achievable timelines. I look at your background, you've got that license plate that says essential, and that defines our industry as a whole. We're needed. You can't just say no to trucking because everything we have has been on a truck at some point in its life. So being able to realistically and accurately partake in what the future holds is beneficial to this industry because there will be a future. We have to be part of that decision-making process.
No, I agree with that statement entirely. So I think as some of these advancements have become so fast, in the last 5 to 10 years. So I got into trucking in the mid 90s and everything was on paper. We were dispatching trucks on card filing systems. And I look at the 20 data points that we put together on paper back then. And I look at the thousands of data points that we track now. And sometimes, the thousands of data points every couple of seconds that we're collecting, and the amount of data that some of the carriers swim in and that they try to determine what to use with. And you take that down to smaller organizations and they just don't know how to proceed. They don't know what to look at. And I look at Truckload 2025 and guidance, some of the sessions and the discussions that can happen there. Zander, you want to talk about a little bit about that on just, there's a lot going on in the industry. If I'm a fleet owner and I'm looking for kind of that North Star of where I need to, maybe I have 50 trucks or I have 100 trucks or I have 500 trucks. I'm just looking at for a path. How would I use the conference to potentially guide me or ensure that I'm going in the right direction on an annual basis?
Yeah, I would encourage people to come and just engage with the content, the networking that we're doing. We've got a large carrier panel that's going to provide insight. Knight Swift's going to be there. TFI International. Mark Seymour with Chris is going to be moderated. We also have a small carrier panel that will provide insights. There's also a panel on young professionals and kind of business succession planning and getting that younger generation engaged. We also have a lot of, I think we call them interactive discussion groups that break out and talk about everything from AI to workforce development to healthcare costs and insurance costs and whatnot. A lot of just breakout sessions, general session panels, again, the networking. And I would say, the event starts on Saturday, March 15th and runs through Tuesday, the 18th. I know it's a long time for people to get out of the office, but I encourage them to come early. We've got a lot of things planned for that first day on Saturday. We've got a first-time attendee orientation. We've got a new member reception and committee meeting. We've got a block party sponsored by Pilot Flying J and Volvo Trucks. And then on Sunday, we've got all these different committee meetings that help steer the direction of TCA. More awards programs, whether it's Highway Angel or Driver of the Year, and again, lots of content throughout the 3.5 days. And I think you mentioned earlier with the Driver of the Year, we'll culminate on that Tuesday evening. So I guess I say come engage and take it all in. And I didn't mention we've got a full exhibit hall. We've got 150 vendors coming in. So come see the latest technology and services provided by our vendors. And I know John Culp at one point at Maverick said he loves coming to the exhibit hall. He can see his 10 to 15 vendors in one place. So, I encourage those carrier executives to come as well for that.
Yeah, we'll be there. So throwing that plug out there. So
There you
we'll be there. And I'll say, from the exhibit hall standpoint, and we do business with almost as many technology providers as we do carriers. And the technology provider side, we used to look at other conferences as the primary conferences that we'd want to go to meet with our vendor partners. And TCA on the truckload aspect typically has the vast majority of them there. So we've largely looked at this conference as a good fit for vendor partner meetings as well. So.
Yeah. And I would just mention too, Nate, I think we connected when TCA announced, we were offering a severely discounted registration rate for all carriers,
Right.
whether you're a member or not, of just $500, where typically I think it's $900 plus for a carrier to come, whether you're a member or non-member. So our officers got together several months ago and decided that, hey, as we all know, this freight market is lasting. The down freight market is lasting much longer than we like. Let's see if we can give a break to some of these carriers to get them to come to the convention and get engaged. And that's when we came up with that $500 offer. And I think that's how we connected, because you saw that message, and we're doing all we can to support our members, and this is one way of doing that.
Yeah, when I saw that, that's when I jumped out and said, why don't we chat? So if you guys are interested, so
whichever carriers are out there listening, we've got a great deal. It's $500. Just go to tcaconvention.com and you can register, and we'd love to see you there in Phoenix.
Yeah, hopefully we have a ton of them. So I know, that's been a big topic. We had our company update. We do a monthly company update here at GLCS, and that was one of our topics. Is a lot of the conferences that are out there are very expensive, and it gets difficult to bring a small fleet, especially, but truly any fleet, because the larger you get, the more people you want to bring, and that becomes a taxing number. It's not only the price of the conference, it's the hotel and it's the airfare. I don't know if you've looked at airfare recently, but holy moly, it's more expensive than the conference.
Yeah,
in some cases. It's definitely more expensive than the hotel in some cases. So it's domestic airfare is got something wrong with it right at the moment. The math doesn't work for me. So, I appreciate that, especially helping out with our carrier friends, and they've been struggling for a few years here. So, we'll go into another kind of big topic every year. Kind of going along those lines of what I just said, every year trucking gets more competitive, more regulated, and more unpredictable. Companies and leaders that succeed are the ones who stay ahead. They're the ones that make the right connections. They're the ones that adapt to change before it's too late to adapt to change. And right now, we're very likely going into an up market, debatably. So we're definitely probably not in the down market that we were before, but all of it's debatable. So, but for those that are listening, TBD, but I talk to hundreds of fleets. We service hundreds of fleets, and I for all intents and purposes, it feels like it's a little better than it was yesterday. So for those who are listening, who think they don't have time or can't justify the cost of attending Truckload 2025, what's the real cost of staying in the dark? So what's the opportunities they're going to miss out on? What's the cost that they could incur where they could be defining the future of their business?
And I don't think that number can be truly calculated. At this point, there's a lot of things going on there, and we're starting to see that upswing start to happen, right? In terms of the economy, and part of justifying the cost to attend a conference like Truckload 2025 is getting takeaways, or what do you bring back from that conference, and what are you learning, and who are you getting ideas from? And this is a huge industry. It's a monumental industry, to say the very least. So how many trucking companies are out there with operating authority on the road today? 600,000, 700,000?
Huge.
there's always people that are going to be doing things a little bit differently, or there's going to be a nugget you can take away. And you talk about the economy, and I know some of our panels have teed up questions like, how are you preparing for the upswing? Which there's going to be some prep work that needs to get done, as opposed to operating in a down market. Now all of a sudden you're looking at the horizon, and that down market is in that rear view mirror. And how are you positioning your fleet to move forward in a new market that we hadn't experienced in a few years? I mean, this is one of those things. Carriers are starting to come out, and you anecdotally hear those stories. Oh, I had a good day yesterday. I had a good week yesterday. I've strung 2 good months together. You're starting to hear those stories, so you can tell it's starting to change. And when it does that, every fleet has to position themselves in a manner in which they can capture that upswing. And you can experience what other fleets are doing to do exactly that by listening to these panel discussions and getting your takeaways from those and bringing them back and putting them on, instilling them in your fleet. That's kind of what these sessions are all about, is to capture what other carriers are doing. Nobody has all the answers. As much as I like to think I do, nobody really does. So the reality is going to be is who's got a different answer, and does that work in your fleet?
Zander, you have a answer to that one?
No, I think Dave hit the nail on the head there. Just, coming and whether it's through a panel discussion or just a conversation off to the side in exhibit hall, getting some nugget of information or action item to bring back to your office that could save a cost or improve revenue and help the bottom line or improve company morale and whatnot. I think that's the key, is you're going to miss out on that kind of those key takeaways perhaps. But to your question, how do you put a value on that? That's a tough question to answer there.
Sure. So I'm going to throw my answer out there to everybody. So as a former fleet owner, as a former fleet manager of a variety of different sizes, typically 100 to 1,000 driver fleets. So I would go to conferences with the intent of replacing my cost. So if you're a carrier, this is a $500 cost, call it, I don't know what the hotel is, but let's say you have $2,000 into the cost of this conference per person. So you need to go to this conference with the intent of saving yourself $2,000. So finding that nugget that saves yourself $2,000. If you don't think that you can go talk to people and figure out how to save $2,000 to cover the cost of your attendance, then don't go. If you do think you can save $2,000, then you should probably go. And that's a pretty easy number for a truckload carrier to figure out. Yeah. So now the question that I'm going to ask you is, and I'm asking this not to you guys, to the listeners, is what's the chance of you figuring out how to save $500,000 or increase your revenue by $500,000? I'll say I was at a conference once where CR England started telling me how to buy trucks and how to test trucks. And I was sitting there with another 300 truck fleet at the time based out of Omaha, and I knew the owner of that fleet really well. And him and I looked at each other. We shut up and we started taking notes. And that day, I made a lot of money.
So there you go.
I made a lot of money, and I would have never figured that one out. I saved a lot of money. I didn't make a lot of money. By no means did cash start flying in my door because of that, but just simply the practices that CR England was using to test their equipment and some ideas that they were floating to us absolutely saved me a massive amount of money on our purchasing strategies going forward with not only trucks, but trailers. So those opportunities don't present themselves if you don't put yourself into these type of discussions, and you just don't get that education. You don't get those opportunities for those type of educations. So let's talk sales. We were talking before, previously, most of the discussions have been around cost control. We've been in a tough market, so we've been trying to figure out how to operate with less. Where can we control our costs? We haven't had the opportunity to go out and sell and increase rates. Now it's about top line accelerants. How can we do more? How can we do more? How can we do more? Where should we add more trucks? there's a little bit of everyone's a little tentative about adding that, but those who throw their equipment in the right spot, those that, it's called rolling stock for a reason. So, move it to the right spot and go. And those that hit the right target are going to win. And those that are tentative and wait are going to miss out. So, that's the unfortunate side about these market swings. So, we got a comment from Mylene. So Mylene said, people need to get involved. So TCA is great people and a great organization. So thank you, Mylene. All right. Let's see. I think that kind of wraps this up. I really appreciate your guys' time. This has been a great conversation. Yeah. Before we wrap it up, I want to give you each a chance for any final thoughts. Anything that you want to leave the listeners before we do our final wrap up here?
Yeah, I would do another shameless plug for our convention
Sure.
in Phoenix. We, as you said, we're trying to drive carriers to come and engage and learn and just leverage what they're learning on site. And please come and visit tcaconvention.com. And again, we got a great rate. And if you think we're a fit after coming, we'd love to have you. We're not going back to sales. We're not going to pressure you into joining, but we think we have a great offering. And we've got over 850 members that can attest to that. And we'd love to have you on board and try us out. So please come to convention and visit tcaconvention.com. I see that going across the ticker tape there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. March 15th through 18th, tcaconvention.com. Anything else? Where can everybody find you? If they want to reach out and send you a message, is any particular place?
I'm on LinkedIn. If you go to truckload.org, our website, all the staff are listed there, our direct lines, email. We are here waiting to hear from you all. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect.
Dave likes to hide his contact information.
All right. David, do you have anything to add there? Or?
No, somebody once told me if money grew on trees, we'd all be living in the forest. But to echo your statement, Nate, come to the convention. This is where all the answers are going to be. And you certainly get a bang for your buck. If not, Zander will write you a personal check. My point being is there's opportunity there. So we'd love to see you in Phoenix. We really would. It's going to be a great opportunity to get out of the cold weather. Come to where spring training baseball is and some great temperatures and some good friends. And we'll see you in Phoenix.
Great. Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Thank you, Nate.
All right. Remember, everybody, we have Lindsay Trent with Next Gen Trucking on tomorrow at 1:00. Excited to talk with her about how she's redefining kind of everything in trucking. So super excited about that. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this thought. Trucking isn't just about moving freight. It's about people. It's about the drivers who sacrifice time with their families to keep America running. The small and large carriers fighting to stay afloat in the sea of regulations, and the industry leaders working tirelessly to protect the future of trucking. The challenges we face are real. Rising costs, workforce shortages, evolving technology, but so is the resilience of this industry. And that's what makes conversations like today so powerful. Organizations like TCA aren't just advocating for policies. They're fighting for the livelihoods of the men and the women who make this industry what it is today. So if today's episode struck a chord, don't just listen. Take action. Get involved. Stay informed and be part of the movement shaping the future of trucking. TCA isn't just another organization, and Truckload 2025 isn't just another event. It's a chance to be in the room where the future is decided. Thanks for listening in and for caring about this industry and for driving it forward. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.